So ToGC ended a few months ago now, and that makes this video exclusively entertainment value. I still have all my notes and VODs from the 2 parse weeks, and I wanted to throw it together anyway, just so I'd have it to look back on later. These phase retrospective videos usually don't do very well in the YouTube algorithm, so if you're here, consider yourself a core viewer of mine. I personally really like ToGC. It wasn't perfect by any means, but there was a lot less, Freya spam reset this time around. There's only 4 parsable bosses in this raid, and that's a huge change from the 14 that Ulduar had, and the over 10 that ICC has. That just means every boss counts that much more. ToGC was pretty unique in that parsing was pretty much off limits until the very end of the phase, because the kill strats were much riskier than the farm strats, and you didn't want to risk losing out attempts because it cost you loot, which means that a lot of people don't even know what the parse strats were. So I'm going to go through them and show you the footage. So for Northern Beast, you usually lust on Ice Howl and kill him while he has the vulnerable debuff from crashing into the wall, which allows your raid to burst him down and your unholy DKs to gain the maximum benefit from their second gargoyle use of the fight, getting the increased haste and double damage from it. However, you could greatly lower your kill time by lusting on the worms and killing them both before either of them submerge, and in order to maximize damage during that lust, you had to pull the worms together and cleave them, which was extremely messy and dangerous. Now whenever we tried to do this strat, we waited until Dreadscale dropped his first slime pool and then brought them together, that way the slime pool wouldn't be under the immobile worm, which is what most people were doing. But after reviewing some Chinese logs, we found that they had better uptime starting the worms together and then having ranged finish off Acid Maw and melee kill Dreadscale. And after we switched to that strategy, the results were much more consistent. I was able to get a pretty good parse, although I played it pretty bad. I didn't line up my trinkets with the cleave timing, and luckily I just randomly killing spreed at the right time to avoid the knockback from Acid Maw. For Jaraxxus, this fight honestly should have been removed from all-star points. You just leave the portal up and spawn endless adds and have one guy pad them all down. Earlier in the phase, this was the only boss I had a pretty clean rank 78 parse. It was pretty easy to do the cooldown Fan of Knives burst pretty well. Since he has a really long RP timer, it's really easy to do a 20-second trinket delay and then have your trinket ICDs up right as the nether portal spawns. The last 2 weeks we pretty much instantly killed the adds and I wasn't really able to pad, so that earlier kill ended up being my best parse, which ended up being a rank 120, which is still not bad. I was pretty happy with that. We can thank God there's no all-star points for faction champs. And now for Valks. I think Valks is like one of the most noteworthy fights of the whole expansion. As rogues we specialize in 2-target burst cleave, and Twins is like the only fight that we've seen so far that just straight up is hard cleave. There was some discussion at the end about going this combat and sub-spec to get preparation so that way you could do 2 blade flurries, and while we had no math to back it up, we estimated that it wouldn't really be worth it unless you had an impossible kill time where you would only get 1 killing spree. So in the end it just didn't seem like the play, and me and the rogues in my guild abandoned the spec, which kind of sucked because it was a cool idea and it would have been nice to make a video on it. But the real thing to focus on for rogues in this boss was the pre-pull. Having a pre-slice and dice going before you pulled the boss made your blade flurry cooldown burst insane. So just like Ulduar, we had to bring back the Honor Among Thieves combo point stacking. I did a video about how Blizzard kind of nerfed this method, but you could still carry over the slice and dice from switching specs, you just couldn't carry over the combo points, which means you could still abuse wearing 2-piece tier 6 and 2-piece tier 4, and so we had to stack this up a lot. And we even talked about getting the slice and dice ready off of a target dummy outside and then getting summoned into the raid, but with the loading screen factor and having to run from the place that you got summoned, it just seemed too messy. We weaped on this like 15 times, which gave me some time to practice, and I felt like by the end I actually did it pretty well. Wasn't perfect of course, but I'm proud of how I did considering it could have been a lot worse, and you only get a cleave fight like this every once in a blue moon. And now for last and definitely least, the big bug dude. This one is pretty similar to Beast, where you had to do a completely different strategy specifically for parsing. Normally for a clean kill you save lust for P3, but if you lusted on pull you could prevent him from doing a barrow phase entirely. This greatly shortens the fight, but extends the last phase. You also only get like 3 waves of adds instead of the usual maybe 5. You also only really kill the first wave because the other ones you can leave alive and let army tank them while you burn down the boss. You definitely still wanted to hit them though, because 600k ad damage still counted towards your logs. Overall this one wasn't that cringe, but it was still a really hard fight to pull off and get good numbers. Sometimes it was even hard to actually just kill the boss this way. He has a ton of health and leaving the adds alive puts your rate on the clock. At the end of the day, I had a lot of fun this phase. We got to just AFK farm loot for a while and then did a hard transition into the parsing strats at the end. Usually the parse strats burn everybody out, but it was nice because it was only 2 weeks this time, which is not bad. After the raid I was the rank 22 rogue, which decayed to rank 30, which I'm pretty happy about all things considered. ToGC was really brutal on loot. You could play much worse than another rogue, but they still beat you having better gear like a Death's Choice or a 277 cape or more bank regalias or something. Overall, if you didn't get to burn the bosses down with the parse strats in ToGC, I think you missed out, especially as a rogue. It was cool. I had a lot of fun, especially Valks. I really enjoyed Valks. And that's it. If you really enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing.